What's up, Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. Today we're going to take a look at the new raid, Root of Nightmares, and we're going to break down the easiest and best ways to complete each of the 4 encounters that this new raid offers, along with its 2 hidden chests. This new raid pins Guardians up against the Witness's Black Legion forces, and Nezarec, who has been awakened as a result of the Traveler blasting that big-ass hole in the side of the Witness's pyramid that was seen through the opening cutscenes of Lightfall. So if you're looking to hop into this new raid for the first time, or just need a refresher on its mechanics and encounters, then this is the perfect video for you. So let's dive into how to complete every encounter in the Root of Nightmares. Root of Nightmares can be found through the Director on Neomuna. The recommended light level for this activity is 1800, so you'll need to be every bit of 1780 or higher to have success while in this raid. The first encounter, called Cataclysm, features no boss, but does include several medium-sized tormentors and several anti-barrier champions, on top of an entire horde of Cabal forces, so having ad clear builds with some high DPS supers are preferred. Heavy machine guns like the Corrective Measure, the Circular Logic, or Retrofit Escapade will be great choices, and since the tormentors have small crit spots on their shoulders and chest, it would be wise to run a precision weapon as well. Exotics like the Thunderlord, the Wishender, the Arbalist, and Izanagi's Burden will all be great choices, while Nova Bomb, Blade Barrage, and Thunder Crash will be great to use on the tormentors. Having a well, a bubble, and a tether can really provide significant advantages for your team. Orb creation will be very important to keep supers going, as will creating heavy ammo, so be sure that you equip Finder, Reserve, Scavenger, and Scout ammo mods. Once entering the arena for Cataclysm, you'll notice that there are several Vex-looking plates, with pixelized silver leaf tree saplings in the middle. There will also be several other plates that are currently empty, with one plate at the start of this encounter that contains an egg-shaped node. You will need to divide your team up to have either 1 or 2 Guardians handling the mechanics for these nodes, while the rest of the team will need to split up into 2 and cover the left and right sides of this football-shaped field. The Guardians handling Aura duty will essentially be playing leapfrog. These nodes will be a reoccurring mechanic throughout this raid, so it would do you well to get familiarized with them. Your goal here is to transfer auras between plates and move this node to the end of the map. As mentioned previously, this arena is shaped like a football field, with large building-like structures in the center and back, with more open spaces around the perimeter. There are plates running down both the left and right sides, with a few plates being found in the middle structures towards the end. To start the encounter, one of the Guardians from the node and plate team will need to stand in the first plate containing the node. Shooting the node will trigger waves of Cabal and will grant those who are within this aura a buff called Field of Light, which lasts for 20 seconds. Only Guardians who are handling the nodes should be in this aura. During the 20-second time frame, this Guardian will need to link up 4 total plates, not including the starting plate. When shooting the node, a beam of light will shine out, directing you to the second plate in the sequence. This Guardian will now need to run directly to that node as fast as possible and shoot or punch the node that's on the second plate. Once done, the second plate will now direct you to the location of the third plate. But after shooting the node on the second plate, you will find that your Field of Light buff has gone away. If you have 2 Guardians running nodes, this is where the second Guardian comes into play. The first Guardian will need to relay to the second which plate they will need to go to. This Guardian would then need to obtain the Field of Light buff for themselves at the first plate, and then head to the third plate in the sequence, shooting or punching the node once they get there. You will want to avoid having more than 1 Guardian carrying the Field of Light buff at once. Anyone who has the Field of Light buff will need to be in the same aura when the node gets activated. Otherwise, the plates will be disrupted and you will not be able to complete the sequence properly. After losing your field of light, you will need to immediately return to the first plate in the sequence, where you obtained field of light, reacquire the buff, and now head to the next plate in the rotation. There are a total of 4 sequences that you'll need to bridge. The first sequence includes 4 plates, plus the starting plate. The second sequence will require 5 plates to be activated. The third sequence will require 6, and the fourth and final sequence will require 7 plates and nodes to be activated. After completing a full sequence, the starting plate will move forward, so you won't have to go all the way back to pick the field of light buff back up. When each sequence is started, the team will receive a countdown timer called Sweeping Terror. This lasts for 30 seconds and will act as a wipe mechanic. The node and plate team will need to complete their current sequence before this timer runs out. There will be a new countdown every time a sequence has been started. A few seconds after the sequence begins, 2 scions will appear at different locations, randomly throughout the map. They usually spawn in on rooftops, and you'll need to physically get into their bubble and punch them. Missing a scion will cause your team to wipe. If the next node in the sequence isn't appearing for the node and plate team, then that is because scions are up somewhere on the map. Any member of the team can do this. It's just preferred that the team who is handling plates and nodes cover it, so that the ad clear team can focus on the champions and tormentors. Just make sure that you're communicating with your team when you do kill a scion. After the scions have been defeated, a tormentor and an anti-barrier champion will be spawned in, one on each side of the map. It will be up to the ad clear team to clear these out as fast as possible. Killing the tormentors will add time to your Sweeping Terror, adding on an additional 30 seconds. The tormentors have an elongated death animation, so make sure that you do not wait until the final second to finish them off. A big tip for this encounter: if the plate and node runners complete their sequence before the tormentor is dead, then you can hold off on killing that tormentor until the next sequence of plates begins. This way, you can have additional time added onto the next sequence. As you clear out each wave of ads and complete each of the plate sequences, you will move forward through the arena until you have completed all 4 plate sequences. After each sequence is done, you will have a brief window of time before starting the next sequence, so use this as an opportunity to gather orbs and ammo before beginning the next plate. After all 4 sequences of plates have been completed, and the tormentors have all been defeated, the Cataclysm Encounter will be complete. As you are making your way through the first jumping puzzle in the Route of Nightmares, there will be a hidden chest just before you reach the second encounter called Scission. This hidden chest will be located in a room with a tormentor and a few cabal. You can find this room by spotting the 2 scion snipers that will be shooting at you as you traverse through the light-infused branches. After killing the cabal and tormentor, you can find the chest sitting in front of the large statue, which I'm assuming is either of the winnower or the farmer. And now continue along the path until you have reached the Scission Encounter. Now this is a very interesting encounter indeed. This encounter has 2 rooms separated by a very large gap. Each room has 3 floors. Similar to the Cataclysm Encounter, you will be cleansing plates while holding a specific buff. The only difference is there are now darkness and light plates that you will need to cleanse. You will also find that there are launch pads on both sides of each floor because you're going to have to connect and transition these nodes from the bottom floor all the way to the top third floor. While you will still get the Field of Light buff when shooting the Light Orb, blasting the large Darkness Orb will give you a buff called Flux of Darkness. Despite the name, it functions exactly the same as Field of Light, with the only difference being you're shooting small light orbs instead of small darkness orbs. Darkness plates are represented with an orange aura, while light plates are silver and white. You will need to separate your team into 3 members for each side, with one runner being assigned to darkness plates and the other to light plates. These guardians will have to activate their respective nodes and then connect them to the corresponding nodes on the opposite side. You will need to use the launch pads to bounce back and forth between the 2 different sides. You will also need to use these launch pads when moving up to the 2nd and 3rd floors. To simplify this as best I can, plate runners will need to shoot their first nodes to get the buff, then use the launch pads to swap sides. They will then need to activate the next plate in their sequence, then reacquire the buff before swapping sides again. Rinse and repeat the process until it's all done. There are a total of 5 plates on each side, plus the starting plates. You will also notice that there is a red progress bar on the side of the walls. This can be used as a countdown for available time before the wipe mechanic kicks in. If you don't cleanse all of the plates in time, the walls will push you and your allies all the way out, hurling you to your death. While the plate runners are activating plates, the Ad Clear team will have Cabal with immune yellow bars and anti-barriers. In order to defeat the yellow bars, a guardian from the Ad Clear team on each side will need to jump into the aura when the plate runners are grabbing their buffs. This will give that Ad Clear guardian the ability to defeat the immune Cabal. But you can cheese this by using the colony instead, getting nose to nose with the yellow bar, then launching off a round or 2 with the colony, which will penetrate their immune shields. If an Ad Clear guardian receives the buff at any point during this encounter, they will need to be sure that they are sticking with whichever plate runner is on their side at the moment, so that they can continue to get the buff. Otherwise, if they are outside of the aura and still have the buff, when the plate gets reactivated, the plates will become disrupted, potentially resulting in a wipe. Once you have completed all of the plates on both sides, there will be flavor text letting you know that interlopers are blocking your ascent. At the same time, a new yellow bar Centurion will be spawned in towards the back and will need to be defeated to progress forward. After all the enemies and plates have been handled, you'll see the nodes relocate to the 2nd floor, where you'll then need to use the launch pads or use Strand Grapple to get to the 2nd and then 3rd floor. These floors are more spread out, making it more challenging for all who are involved, but by simply rinsing and repeating the processes from the 1st floor, you'll be able to easily complete the 2nd and 3rd floors as well. The pattern of the plate sequence for floor 1 will mirror that of the 3rd floor, with the 2nd floor being reversed. Of the 4 encounters, this by far will be the easiest for you to complete. Once completing all 3 levels, you'll be done with the Scission Encounter, and you'll be able to move onward to cross the chasm in the next jumping puzzle. And this is a really fun and interesting jump puzzle. It's all about speed. As you traverse through the puzzle, there will be waves of darkness that will wipe your entire team. These come through every 20 to 30 seconds. Thankfully, there's no restricted respawn, but to avoid dying from this darkness blast, your team will need to get the darkness flux buff provided by the darkness plates. But first, you'll have to find the light plates and obtain the Field of Light buff before being able to activate the darkness plates and getting the darkness flux buff. While making your way through this jumping puzzle, you will have the opportunity to claim another hidden chest. Just before making it to the end of the puzzle, there will be a room on the top floor of the pyramid, which contains a chest. But to unlock this chest, you must activate the crux that is located on the external wall of the pyramid. Shooting the crux will unlock the chest, but you'll have to be quick to avoid the darkness blasts. Thankfully, there are 2 plates within the room containing the chest, so that you can easily reacquire the darkness refuge buff, and continue on to the 3rd encounter. And this encounter introduces the raid's first actual boss, and forgive me for butchering this one, but I'm going to give it a try anyways. Zo'aurc, something like that, kind of sounds like a sneeze. The Explicator of Planets. This is one of the coolest looking raid encounters that I've ever experienced out of Destiny, and one of the most beautiful. And while it might seem intimidating, this encounter is pretty straightforward, and it's pretty much just a matching game. This encounter does not include any of the darkness or light plates that we've used earlier in the raid, but instead, this encounter requires you to line up the planets that are floating in this room. You'll notice that there are 3 platforms on each side of the room, with only 2 of these platforms containing planets. 12 planets in total. There are 3 planets assigned to each of the 4 platforms, with the center platforms not containing any planets. To make things easier for you, it's best to label the platforms with planets. I personally find it best to label these as front left, back left, front right, and back right, or L1, L2, R1, and R2. Now to label the planets. Some teams will find it easier to label them with numbers, while others might find it easier to refer to each set of planets as a close planet, a far away planet, and a middle planet. I find it easiest to assign these planets numbers, going from 1 through 6, with planets 1, 2, and 3 being located on L1 and R1, and planets 4, 5, and 6 being located on L2 and R2. And now it's time to assign roles. You'll need 4 Guardians to handle planet alignments, while the other 2 Guardians handle adds. The Guardians handling platforms will be coordinating with the Guardian across from them. L1 and R1 will be a pair, while L2 and R2 will be a pair. When the encounter begins, there will be a big wave of adds that spawn in at the center of the room, while scions will come out of the doors behind each platform. Within the crowd of adds, in the middle of the arena, you'll find 2 yellow bar centurions. Defeating these centurions will cause big yellow bar lieutenants to spawn in on each platform. These guys are very tough, very tanky, and come with a very powerful stomp attack. After defeating all 4 lieutenants, it's time to align the planets. After each platform's lieutenant is taken down, you'll notice that the planets on your platform will change in appearance, becoming either light or dark. Below each planet will now be a small orb that you're able to pick up, but you only want to pick up from the planet that has turned dark. All 4 Guardians will want to pick up their orbs at the same time. When picking up the orb, you will receive a charging buff called Planetary Shift. This gives you a limited amount of time to take your orb and transfer it to your partners on the other side of the map, while they bring theirs to you. You will need to relay to one another which orb you grabbed, which is where the numbering of planets becomes extremely important. For example, if I were at the top right platform and picked up the dark planet orb that's closest to the center of the map, I would relay to my partner that I'm taking number 1, or number 4, or whichever number that you assign. And then they will relay to me which orb they are picking up. My orb will go into the spot where my partner picked up theirs, and they will dunk their orb into the spot that I picked mine up from. If this is done right by both sets of platforms, you will get flavor text stating that the planets have indexed themselves. You can also observe the planets themselves rotating around right above you. And once they've rotated and aligned properly, they'll lock into place. If someone dunked their orb in the wrong position or didn't have enough time to make it across, in that case, the planets would revert back to how they were originally, ultimately leading you and your team to a wipe. This is why it's so important to have everyone on the same page when it comes to communicating which orbs are being picked up and where they need to go. After you've dunked your orb at your partner's platform, you will need to return back to your original platform. Wait for the adds to spawn back into the center of the room where you'll have Centurions once more. After the Centurions are defeated, another set of lieutenants will spawn in on everyone's platforms. But now, all of your planets will become either light or dark. If you notice in the center of the room, there are 3 plates, circling around a central point. Above these plates will be 3 more planets. They will either be light or dark. Between the 4 guardians who are covering platforms, you will need to bring the appropriate amount of dark and light orbs to dunk into these specified plates in the center of the room. For example, if the center plates show 2 light planets and a dark planet, then the guardians who are on platforms will need to grab and dunk 2 light planet orbs and 1 dark planet orb. If everything has been done as it should, you will now be able to transition into damage phase. The boss himself will jump down to the center area and will have either a white aura or an orange aura. If white, then you need to go to a plate that is underneath a light planet. If the boss has an orange aura, you will have to go to a darkness plate. You will have a limited amount of time to apply DPS at each plate. Be sure to step within the boundaries of the plate so that you can get the buff to damage the boss. You don't have to stay within the plate while doing DPS. There are 3 total damage phases, set up much like the Caretaker in Vow of the Disciple. Overall, you should get about 10 to 15 seconds per plate. It does seem that the final plate goes much quicker, but I have also noticed that when using the Divinity, this timer actually gets elongated for the 3rd plate. Once you've dished out damage from all 3 plates, you'll need to return to your original platform, where you and your teammates will rinse and repeat the process over again. The boss will enrage if you can't get him down quick enough, and he also has a final stand. So if you don't dish out enough damage during the final stand, your team will wipe. And now we move on to the final boss of Root of Nightmares, Nezarec, the God of Pain. Nezarec is in many ways much like a Tormentor, with crit spots on both his shoulders and his chest. Nezarec uses the same attacks as Tormentors do, but he also has a long-range Void Volley and a very lethal Smash, and his jumping skills are at a whole nother level. Woody Harrelson would be super jelly. You are going to need big boy DPS for this encounter. I've seen teams have success with a number of loadouts that include the Lament, the Gallarhorn, the Thunderlord, shotguns with 1-2 punch, linear fusions, heavy machine guns like the Retrofit Escapade, or snipers with firing line and triple tap. Even rocket launchers like the Hothead are really strong. This encounter brings the light and darkness plate mechanics back into play, so you will need to separate your team into 3 groups. One group will be runners. These guardians will be responsible for activating the nodes and connecting their respective plates, just as we have done in previous encounters. You'll notice that there are more than 6 plates on each side of the room, but only 6 plates from each side will need to be activated. There will be 2 guardians assigned to ad clear. There's a lot of heavy duty ads, including several Colossus, and the runners are going to be too fixated on connecting nodes to take care of any of these ads. So the ad clear guardians are going to be paired up with these runners. The other 2 guardians will be assigned with stun duties over Nezarec. This is the more difficult role to take on during this encounter, so the more experienced, higher level, and better equipped guardians in your team should be the ones handling this duty. To start the activity, the node and plate runners will need to activate their starting plates. There are a total of 6 plates that each runner will need to connect. Once the first plate has been activated, Nezarec will wake up ready to fight. While the runners go about their duties of connecting plates, the stunners will have to shoot the shoulders off of Nezarec. Once his shoulders have been popped off, he will emit a bright light that's either light-based or orange darkness-based. One of the stunners needs to pay attention to what color of light gets emitted, and then relay that to the plate runners. Once Nezarec's shoulders have been shot off, he will fixate his gaze onto the runners, which is where one of the stunners will need to shoot Nezarec in the chest to steal his aggro. If no one steals the aggro, Nezarec will catch the runners in a perpetual loophole of vertical void blasts, so it's very important for the stunners to act quickly. Linear fusion rifles and snipers are great for this task. Nezarec's hatred will give that stunner an 11-second cooldown. During this period, Nezarec will relentlessly chase you down, which is why we have 2 stunners, so that one can lure Nezarec around while the other steals the gaze, similar to that of the Caretaker encounter in the Vow of the Disciple. There is currently a cheese functioning to the Nezarec encounter. When he first drops down off of his podium, he will do a leap smash towards the player that has Nezarec's hatred. A well-timed, direct hit melee right as Nezarec is slamming down on you will cause Nezarec to become stun-locked, and as long as you don't move around, he won't either. This doesn't always work though, and it requires precise timing, so I would leave these cheeses to warlocks or titans who can stand in their bubble or well of radiance. Nezarec hits hard, and he is fast. He shoots a lot of void blasts and a lot of projectiles that have concussive damage, so having void resistance and concussive dampener mods on will be a tremendous help. Nezarec does come with a wipe mechanic that can be a little bit tricky to get the timing down on. Once Nezarec's shoulder has been popped off and you've relayed to the runners what the color was, the respective runner will need to head to an already activated node based on what the callout was. For example, if I shoot Nezarec and he blasts out an orange blast, well, then that means the darkness plate runner is going to have to go to an already activated darkness node. So will everyone else, because everyone will need to be within the plate's aura to receive the appropriate buff so that you can survive the wipe mechanic. It's also best to go on an upraised platform so that Nezarec's slam isn't as hurtful, and to also provide you with some cover from Nezarec and his adds. If the runners are able to activate all 6 of their plates before the wipe mechanic kicks in, then there will not be a wipe mechanic. If Nezarec performs a wipe mechanic, he will return to his podium afterwards, where you will need to go through the process of stunning him again and keeping his aggro until the runners are done with their plates. Once the plates are done, Nezarec will start transitioning into damage phase. He will first start to glow white, and then will have a huge beam blasted right onto him, making him susceptible to damage. This is your golden opportunity to dish out as much DPS on Nezarec as you can in about 20 to 30 seconds. It's best to do DPS from one of the upraised platforms so that you don't get booped off the map or slammed to death. After the damage phase is over, Nezarec will return to his podium. His shoulder pads will return, and you will need to rinse and repeat the process over again until Nezarec is dead. Nezarec does have a final stand, but honestly, it's much easier than that of Zo'aurc. The most difficult part about applying damage to Nezarec is that he's very mobile, and he jumps around a lot, which can create some big issues when using rockets or precision weapons. Once entering final stand, it is all or nothing, so be sure to try to save some supers and heavy for this final stretch of damage. Otherwise, you run the risk of starting back at square one. And with that, we have covered how to complete all 4 of the encounters within the Root of Nightmares raid, including the location of both hidden chests. The Root of Nightmares does contain a few lore entries, plus a secret red border chest. I'll be covering details to these in upcoming videos, so be sure to stay tuned to the channel for that and all of your other Destiny 2 Lightfall news. That's going to wrap up things for today's video. I hope this guide has provided you with the help that you were looking for, and I wish you all the best and luck in completing the Root of Nightmares raid. Let me know how your runs are going in the comments below, and what your thoughts of this new raid armor and weapons are in the comments below. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.